You may want to live there, but I don't want to live there. Look, buying a home is probably the biggest investment that you'll ever make in your life, and not all homes are created equal. In this video, I'm going to explore 8 types of homes that I just wouldn't buy. Again, this is my opinion. You can disagree with me. In fact, if you do, I'd love for you to comment down below. Let me know what type of homes you would or wouldn't buy. Again, my name's Scott Walters with Best USA Realty. I am your Utah YouTubing realtor, and my goal is to help save you money, time, and potential headaches. And some of these homes on this list are a hard no. I would just never buy them. And some I'll give to you with an asterisk, just meaning you could consider buying them, just know what you're going into beforehand. And with that, let's talk about home number 1 that I just wouldn't buy, and that's really old homes. I would stay away from homes that are more than 100 years old. In my career, I've seen a house or two. In fact, back in the downturn of 2008, I was evaluating over 100 homes a month for banks and giving them my opinions on the things that were costing them money, what repairs they needed to make to be able to resell those homes. So I've got a pretty good idea of what types of homes I would just avoid buying to save you a lot of headaches and money. Now, I worked with my dad for many years in real estate, and he was a real estate broker for many years. And one of the things he always taught me when you buy real estate is think about resellability. I believe the last time I looked at the stats, the average American was moving about every 7 years. So generally speaking, in our society today, people don't stay in a house for a lifetime like our grandparents did. They move around quite a bit. So when you're looking at buying homes, that's one of the things that helps me decide on whether I should buy a house or not, is the resellability of that home. There's a couple principles that you need to be aware of that are what are called basically appraisal principles or real estate principles on home, what affects the value of a home. And that's called obsolescence. You either have economic obsolescence or functional obsolescence. Economic obsolescence means something that's outside the control of the house that's affecting the value of a home. So let's say you're right next to a sewer treatment plant. That's going to affect the value of your home. Perhaps you're in the underneath the flight path of a major airport with airplanes going over day and night. That's going to affect the value of home. Or maybe you have massive power lines going over the top of your home. Things like that are economic obsolescence. You don't have control of those. They're outside your control, but they do affect the property. The other one is called functional obsolescence. That means that has more to do with how the house functions. For example, the house, works, but let's say it's dated, meaning it has it's got, the 70s wood paneling and the pink and green shag carpet from when it was originally built. Those things will affect the value of the home. It's called functional obsolescence. People could live in there, but they don't want it. And so that is one thing I'm always looking at when I'm looking at homes that have economic obsolescence or functional obsolescence that's going to affect the value of this home. And is it something that I can live with? Hey there, it's Scott Walters with Best USA Realty, your Utah YouTubing realtor. And as much as I love making these videos, there's one thing that I love more, and that's helping families and people from all over the U.S. to move here. I've helped countless families move, so whether you're thinking of moving next week, next month, or even next year, don't hesitate to reach out. My contact is right here on the screen, and it's linked in the description down below, just in case you missed the pop-up. I look forward to helping you and your family make the move here to Utah. When I was a youngster, my dad used to do a lot of fix and flips on old homes all around us. He drew a circle on the map that was a 100-mile radius, and he was going up buying all these homes that were built in 1890 to 1900, and basically he would just put paint and carpet on them and resell them. But I know that he wasn't putting in new current wiring or current plumbing, and so that may be something you may encounter with someone else who's got an old home they're selling to you. It may have all that original plumbing and wiring in it, and that can be a very costly upgrade. Here's some of the main issues that I have with really old homes. A lot of them will have been renovated, but have they gone and done all the renovations as far as replacing plumbing? Oftentimes they have old pipes in them, perhaps even lead piping in there. If you buy an old house and it hasn't had the plumbing redone, that could cost you thousands of dollars and a lot of time without a hot shower and cold drinking water. So that's one reason why I don't like, or I would avoid buying an old home. The other one is the electrical. If they haven't updated the electrical, you might have a hard time getting a loan on that home because the homeowner's insurance company may not accept that house with the old wiring if it's got the old knob and tube wiring in there. If it's not upgraded, then you might just have a hard time getting a loan on that house. The other one I would say is oftentimes you will see sloping floors things of that nature in an old house. They're just, maybe the foundation has been sagging or sinking and you've just got uneven floors all over the place. And one way that we like to check that is you just put a marble down on the floor if it's an old wood floor and watch it roll, which way it's rolling. But many times you can feel it. Now the other thing that a lot of old homes have is very weird floor plans. They're not modern floor plans like what people are used to today. They're not big open floor plans. They usually have very narrow and steep stairwells going upstairs or downstairs. I've seen a lot of old homes where you'll go in one bedroom and then from that bedroom there's an entrance into the next bedroom, but that second bedroom doesn't have its own separate entrance, so you're having to always walk through someone's bedroom to get to your bedroom. So that's another reason why I just avoid old homes. They just have very dysfunctional. That would be an example of a functionally obsolescent home. Okay, the next type of home that I would avoid personally is a home that has a foundation issue. So if you've had a home and it's got a serious foundation issue and it's sinking on one end of one side of the house, which there is actually a house near me that had that happen. The homeowners went to sell it. It was sloping. They had an inspection done on it. The cost and repair was well over $100,000 to bring that to put what they call helical piers under the house and to sink those into bedrock and raise that house up to being level. So it could be very costly to buy a home with a foundation issue. Now, one thing to think about too, I don't know how it is out on the east side of the country, but here on the west side of the country, it's not uncommon to find a home that has an old home that has its foundation built from rocks. And sometimes those rocks just don't always stay in place and they start falling apart. That's oftentimes what causes those old homes that I talked about earlier to have the sagging floors, is those rock foundations are moving. And so I would just definitely, I would avoid a home that has has had some foundation issues. Perhaps there may be structural issues you're not aware of. The other thing is it's always going to stigmatize the property. People are going to find out and know, well, that's the house that's sinking. In fact, that home I was talking about, I actually talked to the renter that moved in there and asked him where he lived. He says, oh, I live in the sinking ship over there. So it was already stigmatized. He already knew before he moved into that rental that it was a stigmatized property with a sinking foundation. Okay, the third type of home that I would avoid buying is a home that's in an extreme flood plan. So check out your flood maps and see where it's at. There's a subdivision not too far from me, and it's got basically $1 million to $2 million homes in it, beautiful homes. But when I was a young man, we had a massive flood in 1983 that flooded out that whole entire area. The area where all those homes are at were underwater. Last year we had a massive runoff, but we actually had the most ideal conditions. The river's as high as it's ever been. They had to go and actually shore up the shoreline, bring in a lot of dirt and rocks and filler to keep the rivers within its banks. But what happens if we didn't have an absolutely ideal runoff in the spring? Well, those properties have a very high likelihood of flooding. It's probably a matter of when, not if, that those properties flood. So that's going to cost you a lot of property damage. It also can be very costly to insure a home that's in a flood zone. And if you are in a flood zone and you've got a loan, your mortgage provider is going to make you carry flood insurance on that property. Also, it could be an issue with resale value. So if people are aware that you're in a flood zone, they know it's going to be more of a costly thing for them to carry flood insurance, they may opt not to purchase your home. Thinking about relocating to Utah? Well, I've got just the thing for you. My team and I have actually taken the time to create the ultimate relocation guide, which is meant to save you hours of research. And I've linked it down below, from top employers to the best hospitals, and a boatload of other things that you need to know before making the move. The best part is this guide is 100% free. That's right, you heard me right, 100% free. Just click the link in the description on the top pinned comment. Hope that helps. The fourth type of home that I would avoid would be homes that back up to heavily wooded areas. Well, really more that back up to the mountainsides. And again, this may be something that doesn't apply to where you're at. Maybe you're out east and that's just not an issue that you deal with. But out here in the Intermountain West, we have wildfires that we deal with. And if you're backed up to the mountains with those heavy woods, you might, well, again, it's probably not a matter of when, it's just a matter of if you're going to have a massive wildfire to deal with. Just 4 or 5 years ago, we had a massive wildfire in the communities just south of me. They're a mile, 2 miles from me. They back up to the big mountains. There was a huge fire. They were evacuated for weeks. Luckily, The efforts of the heroic firefighters kept those homes from burning. There was absolutely not one home that was lost. I don't even know how that happened. The entire mountainside was on fire. So that's just something to be aware of. And again, all real estate is local. So this is an issue that we deal with out in the West. Perhaps it's not an issue that's dealt with in the plains or out on the East Coast. So that's why it's so important that you visit with a local market expert. And if you need a referral to another agent in your market that's a market expert on the things that you need to look out for in your area, the types of homes that you need to avoid, I'd be happy to just make a comment down below and I can get you hooked up with the local expert. Now, one thing that can also happen if you are in an area that's had the wildfire issues is that you could also have higher insurance rates to be covered. The insurance companies, they're aware of wildfires have happened, and I wouldn't put it past them to raise the insurance cost to live in that area. So that's number 4 for me. Avoid living in areas where it's heavily wooded. Okay, the next home that I would be this is one where I'd put kind of an asterisk by it. This is just like, if you're going to buy it, just be cautious. And that is homes that are in the steep hillsides or in the foothills of the mountains. Again, this is something that's probably more applicable to those that live in the western United States and they live in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I have seen many times homes that have actually started sliding down off the mountain due to super steep terrain and also unstable soil. And in fact, last year when we had the heavy saturating floods and rains in our area, there were homes and new subdivisions that literally were sliding down the hill. Those homes were lost. So that's just a caution. You need to go in if you're gonna buy in those areas, make sure you check out the history of the area. Have there been homes or areas that have had issues with the unstable soil and those steep terrains? And if there's not a history of that, then I'd say, okay, go ahead and buy it. But if there's a history of it, I'd certainly buy very cautiously. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was showing a home right up in the very steep foothills, and I showed a home that was as far against the hill as you could possibly go before it was way too steep to build. And the home was built in the 70s, went inside, everything still looked like the 1970s, except for the kitchen. The kitchen was beautiful, brand new, and we found out in the seller disclosures that a giant rock had rolled down the hill and came through their house and destroyed their kitchen. So definitely something to watch out for. I would definitely think second about buying a home that is definitely the last home backed up to a mountain to where you could build, but also just being in those steep foothills. Another thing to consider about those homes that back right up to the mountain is you could have landslides that come down on them from the mountains, or even avalanches. I looked at a multi-million-dollar home not far from me that's up in the foothills. It's also one of the last homes right up against the mountain. And we had a massive snowfall one year, and their entire front driveway was covered by an avalanche. They're very lucky that it didn't go inside the house. And just know that modern buyers are not looking for homes like that, so it could deter potential buyers from making an offer on your home, and could end up causing you to make less money whenever the time comes that you resell it. The one home I referred to you about, it did sell for less money because that was the primary concern of all the buyers, is it did not have its own separate bathroom. Okay, my next home that I would walk into very cautiously, I personally wouldn't buy these because of the issue of resale. I'm always thinking about resale on properties, but that's a home that doesn't have a primary bedroom, bathroom, or closet. In other words, you walk in and you're sharing the bathroom with everybody else. That's something that's an example of functional obsolescence. The house may work and you can live there and everything else is working fine. It's just that people don't like that floor plan, and that will absolutely affect the resellability of your property. The first time I encountered this was clear back probably around the year 2000 when I was selling a home just like that. Beautiful home. It's only a couple of years old at the time. It had a large primary bedroom, but the closet was very small, and it shared the main bathroom with all the other bedrooms on the upper level, which meant that you're sharing your bathroom. If you have guests come over, they're coming into your main bathroom. It's just something I find that a lot of buyers just don't like, and it affects the resellability of your house. So I don't think it's as big a deal as like an old house or a home in a floodplain, but it is something to be cautious about when you're buying one of those types of homes. Now, you can fix that. That's an example of a functionally obsolescent thing that you could fix after you buy it. That's why you need to go into it very cautiously, because it might be quite a costly expense for you to repair that, to create another bathroom. So if there's other bathrooms for the other bedrooms up there, and to still it off so that just you have access to that bathroom. So that's one reason why I say go into it cautiously, because it could cost you a lot of money to remedy that functionally obsolescent feature of a home. Okay, the next home that I'd be very cautious about buying would be a manufactured or a mobile home. One of the reasons for this is oftentimes they can be very difficult to find conventional financing for those homes. There are some programs out there, but it is very difficult. In my experience, lenders just don't seem to like to lend on manufactured housing, and so that'll cause an absolutely huge issue when it comes to resale. If you are able to find someone who can get financing on it, when you go to sell it, the next person trying to buy that home may not be able to find financing for it anymore. So that would be a caution I'd have for you when it comes to manufactured homes. Resaleability can be really difficult. They don't seem to appreciate the same rate that a stick-built home does. Their values always seem to be a little bit more depressed. And especially if you build one of those in a regular neighborhood, like you bring it in, put it on a foundation in a regular stick-built neighborhood, it will always be the home that appreciates the slowest compared to your neighbor's homes. Okay, the final home that this is another one where I'd put an asterisk by it, and not a hard red flag about buying, but that's homes that are in a homeowners association or an HOA. The reason I put an asterisk by it is because for a lot of people, buying a home in an HOA may be really your only or best option to be able to get into real estate. I'm thinking of things like townhomes and condominiums that might be priced in a more affordable price range. And if that's all that you can afford, then by all means, buy it. Get into the real estate market, let that appreciate. One of the reasons that I hesitate personally for buying homes in the homeowners association, they can control a lot of your life. You have to get permission oftentimes to be able to just paint the color of your house or the color of your door. I was actually looking at buying a single family home in an upper scale neighborhood that had an HOA, and I needed to fix the driveway. You could barely get into the third car garage the way that it had been built, and I wanted to adjust that driveway. You have to go through a whole building process or approval process with the HOA to get them to approve being able to change your driveway. Motorhomes, bolts, toys, things like that were not allowed to be parked on the side of the house unless you had a separate stick-built garage. And so it can just be super costly to be part of a homeowners association. Of course, they also have high fees for maintenance of the common areas. You may be in an area where they have a clubhouse and you never even use it, but you've got to pay for it every month with that homeowners association fee. So again, this is not a hard red flag. It's a go into it very cautious, knowing what you're getting into, that you might have the HOA knocking on your door because you've got weeds out front. And at one point, I did have a home in an HOA in Arizona, and we would get letters frequently because the renters were not keeping the weeds out of the rocks. Or they didn't bring the garbage can in soon enough after garbage day. So it can just be something that's highly frustrating, especially if you really like your freedom, you don't like being told what to do. Then I would not buy in a homeowners association development. For those of you thinking of moving to the Utah area, where are you moving from and what's the reason why you're leaving your current city or state? I'm truly curious, so make sure to let me know down below. So those are just some of the homes that I just would recommend that you never buy. And I hope this video saves you some potential headaches and some costly repairs. Hey, if you found this video helpful, you might also enjoy my 6 reasons why you might not survive living in Utah. You can watch that video by clicking on somewhere up here. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap on the notification bell so you can stay current every time I drop another video about living in Utah. Again, my name is Scott Walters with Best USA Realty. I am your Utah YouTubing realtor, and with that, we will catch you on the next video.